Hi, Facebook. I'm back, just like I promised. I just want to share some things with you today. We're still on the subject of self-esteem, and so I just want to share that with you. I wanted to restate some things that I said before, just to remind you of when I talked about you won't always wake up feeling on top of the world. But even when you have those days where, I wish I could go back to sleep. Even when you have those days, you can still know who you are, whose you are, and that you have purpose in this world, and that you have value. And so it's coming to the point of understanding you have great value in your life, and there's great value in your presence. There's a reason why you're here, and you're not here just for yourself, but you're here for those that God has allowed you to be stationed around. And so you have a job. So it's important for you to know who you are and to be confident that you have a job. And if you have a job, the ability to do the job was also placed in you. You have to tap into it because you are, again, of great value to someone. And they need to get or glean the value from you that you hold inside. I want to talk about someone that his name is Moses, and that we've read about a bit, and we know some different parts of his story. But I want to share with you how he had purpose. And if you follow his footsteps, by reading his story, you will find that there was nothing done by mistake, even though I'm sure many times it was very uncomfortable. But it started as a child, so it wouldn't have been as uncomfortable as it would if somebody took an adult and took them into a different society and tried to remold them. But this baby named Moses that was found by the Pharaoh's daughter and taken in as her own, and was raised in the culture and beliefs of the Egyptians. If you follow his story, though, you'll find that this was not a mistake. This wasn't happenstance that happened. This was something that was designed because he had a job to do, and it was important, and he was valuable to the outcome. And so he had to be put in a place where he could actually show the value that he had. So I just want to share some things with you, though. In spite of him being raised in the Pharaoh's home, so you know he was important just in society, being connected to the Pharaoh, but also he was important to God, and he was in the Pharaoh's house on purpose. He still, in spite of that, though, Moses had a little problem with his own self-esteem. Remember, he encountered God. Remember when he went up into the mountain and this burning bush intrigued him, and finally this voice came out, told him to take his shoes off and all of that, and then gave him some instruction, told him what his call was going to be, what his purpose was. And when he listened to that and he was told what to do, he said, well, who do I say sent me? I mean, what do I tell them? How do I explain how I got these instructions? How do I tell them that it was a burning bush and a voice came out, told me to take my shoes off and all of this? How do I explain? He was a human being, and the people that he would be dealing with were human beings, and they would be kind of like us, just in a different time. If someone came and told us something like that, we would think they're out of their minds. And so he had to figure it out. But that was his first excuse. His first, I can't do this. And that was the first thing. Another thing that Moses came up with, his second excuse was, they're not going to believe me. And that was his second excuse. He said, now, mind you, he was standing there, though. Moses was standing there with a great tool in his hand. Many times that's what we're doing. We have a tool in our hands and we undervalue what we hold. And that's what Moses did. It's just a staff. What do I do? And so God had to show him some things with that. But read the story and you'll find out, because I have to I have to move on. But what happened was that he had a tool in his hand that became valuable, but he had not tapped into that knowledge yet. And then third, he said, I am not eloquent. How do I go tell somebody something? I am not eloquent. I have to go to the Pharaoh. And of course it would be a different person, but it's like he was still the Pharaoh. And he said, I have to go and explain to him what a bush told me. Can you imagine how that must have felt? But also, these were challenges to his self-esteem because he knew how to approach these people. He was raised in the house. So he knew the culture. He knew the rules. He knew all the guidelines. He knew how to get audience with the Pharaoh. Now, God responds to him. But here's how he responds to his lack of self-esteem. He says, who made man's mouth? Or the dumb, or the deaf, or the seeing? In other words, if I want to make a dumb talk, he will. If I want to give deaf ear to hear, they will hear. If I want to make the blind see, I can make that happen. What are you talking about? You can't speak. What are you talking about? All these things you're bringing up, all of your excuses, please. And so he had to really look at it. But what God also did, he kind of brushed past all of his excuses, and he said, now therefore go. And I wonder, what are we holding in our hands? What do we have inside of us that we're undervaluing, that we don't think is important to anybody? Out of all that we've been through, the people we've experienced, the environments that we were in, that we could walk back in and not be intimidated because we know the rules. What excuses are we using to keep us from progressing, to keep us from progressing toward the people we're supposed to be delivering, to keep us from helping those that we should be helping? Not necessarily like Moses did. Let's not be too spiritual. Maybe it is just somebody who you give a word to that encourages them to move on to the next step in their life. Or maybe a hug for someone who has lacked love and affection for a long time and just need to know someone cares. I've been one who it was sometime. I had a lady that actually I knew years back who every time I saw her, I just loved that lady because she would hug me, and it was like my emotions and everything would just melt into her arms. And it was because she had such an amazing hug. I undervalue nothing because it was her hug that many times was the healing salve I needed for what I had experienced the previous week before I came in contact with her. So let's not undervalue what we actually hold within us. What do you have in your hand? Are you a good cook? Are you just a person that know how to just touch the lives of other people? Do you know how to tell a good story? Can you share your experience to the point that you encourage somebody that they can move on ahead in life? What are you holding inside? Can you help somebody figure a challenge out? What do you hold that you're undervaluing, that you don't think it's so important that you need to share it with someone else? I'm just hitting some minor things. What is it? Can you go walking with someone? Can you just go sit in a group with someone else? Not because you need the topic, but because they do. But they need your company in order to receive it. What do you hold in your hand that could help be a deliverance for you and others? What exactly? Don't underestimate you, because you have giftings inside of you that are so valuable, not just to you, but to someone else. But I want to ask you a couple questions, and I want you to just entertain them just for a moment. Answer answer them within yourself. You can write them down and think about them later or whatever. But do this. Answer a couple questions. One of the questions would be, can I make a mistake and be okay with that? Can I talk to people I don't know? Can I accept a compliment and not feel uncomfortable with it? I do what I believe is right, even if others disapprove. Can you say that? Can you really say that? I accept myself, faults and all. Can you say that, or do you look in the mirror and become your own worst critic? Can you say, I do not compare myself with others? We're all guilty of that at some point. Can we say that I can feel happy for someone else in their successes and not feel intimidated or less than? Can you say, I love you to all the people you love? And then look in the mirror and look at yourself and say the same? Can you look at you in the mirror and say, I love you? Not because you're arrogant or stuck on yourself or self-conceited or anything like that, but because you really do love yourself. How can you extend something you don't have for yourself? It's like trying to feed somebody from an empty plate. You have to learn what love is regarding yourself, and then you extend what you have on your plate to someone else. And are you comfortable being alone? Can you go and take yourself to breakfast and be okay with you? Think about it. How comfortable are you with you? How critical are you about you? Think about it. It is important to feel good about yourself, because you're not just good, but you're very good. And that's God's words regarding you. Think about those things and understand you're valuable, very good, and have something to offer. Have a gift in your hand, and someone's waiting for you, and they'll follow you as both of you walk into a deliverance. Thank you for listening to me. I hope I see you again. Enjoy the rest of your week. Be a blessing. Bye-bye. It's been good.